Welcome back, Patriots, to the Bald Brad Show, where we cover all the news that you need to know about heading into your workday, heading into the weekend, heading into really anything that you're going to do after this roughly hour-long podcast. We are independent, meaning the person that hosts and does everything is me, yours truly. We have no producers. We have no really back-end team other than the great moderators that volunteer their time to moderate you crazies in the chat. But it's good to see all of you. Good morning. Hopefully you had a nice sleep, because I need you to be awake this morning, because I'm about to throw a lot of information at you regarding the declassified documents that Tulsi Gabbard dropped just the other day. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because, one, it just shows you how deep this whole thing really ran. It shows you how corrupt our government is. And you also need to be informed with what took place, because I have a hunch, however you want to refer it to as, that this sucker is going nowhere. And at least it's not going nowhere for the next few months, because we know Tulsi Gabbard is going to drop more documents, which is insane, because the documents she's already dropped have just give a lot more credibility to what we already thought before. And what I mean by that is, somebody made the comment of like, oh, well, we already knew this was happening. No, we didn't. We had a speculation as patriots that this whole thing was taking place, and that we said it doesn't sound right. It sounds fishy. It sounds kind of off the wall. You know, our BS meters were going through the roof, but we didn't exactly know. You don't know something until you have the proof, folks. You can only speculate. Well, we have the proof now. We're going to make sure I break it all down for you. Appreciate that. Now, if you could hit that like button, would greatly appreciate that. Also, welcome to the month of August. It's officially a whole new month, meaning we are the majority of the way through this year, which is already bonkers. I feel like we just had New Year's. I feel like Donald Trump was just sworn in the office yesterday. Crazy how time moves. Well, as I mentioned yesterday during Dark MAGA podcast, which is our evening show, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I have the duty of breaking down these two declassified documents that were distributed by Tulsi Gabbard and Chuck Grassley. So let me get my show notes here for all of you. Now, this points to Russiagate. So the first pair of documents that were dropped, and actually let me show you on the screen here, it would be this one first. All right. These documents were dropped, okay, just the other day. Now, don't really worry about the date that's at the top. That was just approved for release, and then it has to go through the necessary chains. So the first part I want to begin with here is, and let me do this. Let me move myself really quick. For those on audio, thank you for joining me here on the Bald Brad Show. The first thing I want to do is kind of pose a question here for everyone, and really ask this key question. After that historic election night that we saw, did foreign adversaries, specifically Russia, actually manipulate or alter the vote count to change the outcome of the 2016 presidential election? That's the question. Now, these newly declassified intelligence documents, spanning, if you were to look at all of them together, probably about like 130 something pages. This one's 114. But what they do is they deliver a crystal clear answer. Very clear. The answer is no. Not to mention that the other documents that were declassified by Tulsi Gabbard and the Director of National Intelligence, which is her, the DNI, the answer was also no. They specifically state, quote, "We assess that foreign adversaries did not use cyber attacks on election infrastructure to alter the U.S. presidential election outcome this year. We have no evidence of cyber manipulation of election infrastructure intended to alter results." That's right. The entire narrative we've heard, endlessly debated, has been clearly answered by our own intelligence community. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, none of those countries succeeded in altering any vote tallies in the 2016 election. But here's the critical part. What did Russia actually do? Did they do anything? Well, according to these documents, these 114 pages that are in front of you that I went through, was launched sophisticated cyber operations designed explicitly to undermine American democracy, sow division, and damage public confidence in our elections. The report states clearly, Russia has conducted cyber and intelligence operations that suggest it has potential interest in disrupting the U.S. presidential election, emphasizing their intent to weaken American trust in its own democratic institutions. Now, how did they do that, though? Well, these intelligence assessments here highlighted detailed operations against the DNC and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Cyber operatives identified confidently as Russian actors penetrated servers, extracted sensitive information, and strategically leaked this data. Now, this would also be known as kind of the WikiLeaks information. Now, you might be saying, well, Brad, I thought Russia didn't interfere in the election. Not at the capacity that the Democrats, the Obama administration said that they did. There was them hacking the servers, which now even has kind of its own intelligence report that goes, well, we're not really in a high confidence mode to say that really took place. Now, remember, when they hacked this information, the Russians had a lot of information on the Hillary Clinton campaign. Remember how we talked about our health issues, that they never released that stuff. So this whole conversation about, well, they're there to support the Republicans, they just want the Republicans to get office, meaning Donald Trump, doesn't exactly hold any weight. The intelligence, again, clearly says that we assess that the Russian services probably orchestrated at least some of the disclosures of the DNC and the DCCC documents from June to August 2016. Okay, that's nothing new. That was the WikiLeaks stuff. Now, some of you might be wondering here, well, how certain is the intelligence community about Russia's direct role in leaking this information? The answer is high confidence from the majority of the intelligence agencies. Although, interestingly, the FBI and NSA expressed lower confidence, noting, quote, disclosures appear consistent with Russian influence activities, but lacking sufficient technical details to correlate definitively to Russian state-sponsored actors. So remember how I said, even though this is what this report is saying, and that we know that the WikiLeaks stuff took place way back when, and they say that, well, it was the Russians were the ones that hacked the DNC servers and revealed certain information through WikiLeaks. I mentioned that there was other intelligence agencies that said, well, we don't really exactly have high confidence that it was Russian state actors that actually did this. So within the intelligence community, you have a contradiction, and that's where we'll get to the whistleblowers and stuff like that in just one moment. So even within our own intelligence community, there were differing opinions, which underscores the complexity of cyber hacks. But regardless, Russia's strategy was clear: exploit stolen data to generate chaos, embarrassment, and suspicion around our electoral system. It wasn't only about leaks. Russian cyber actors aggressively targeted voter registration databases in Illinois, successfully extracting sensitive personal data. According to these documents, up to 20 other states experienced similar attempts, though less successful. The intent was clear: erode trust, disrupt processes, and leave Americans questioning their own electoral integrity. These documents explicitly say Russian government-affiliated actors most likely compromised an Illinois voter registration database and unsuccessfully attempted the same in other states. And yet, despite all these malicious actions, our systems proved resilient. The decentralized nature of U.S. elections, something our foundings instinctively valued, created a scenario where widespread covert manipulation was nearly impossible. Experts quoted in these documents describe this decentralization as a critical safeguard, noting, quote, the decentralized nature of the U.S. election system is a potential source of strength. The diversity of technical solutions creates resilience, end quote. Now, here's another significant revelation from these documents. Cyber actors, both state-sponsored and criminal, didn't limit themselves to attempts at direct manipulation. They also conducted distributed denial of services, DDoSes basically is what those are, and attacks on election websites, attempted to steal administrative credentials and disrupt voter registration processes, all aimed at causing confusion and disruption. On election day itself, the report notes, quote, unattributed denial of service attacks against election infrastructure were reported, including a 4-minute attack against a unspecified Illinois election website. So again, another unspecified report taking place. Now, Democrats and mainstream media are going to say, well, you guys are saying there was no sort of Russian interference or anything taking place. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that the data doesn't point towards the things that you were pointing at, that the Trump campaign was colluding with the Russians. Again, there was no question if other foreign countries were trying to meddle in our elections. That has always happened. And by the way, it was happening that other countries were trying to interfere in some way, shape, or form in our elections. Again, the WikiLeaks, all the stuff, that stuff we already knew. The question is how big of a degree did it happen? And the question was the Trump campaign colluding with the Russians? No, they weren't. Looking ahead, however, the intelligence community warns of ongoing threats, highlighting vulnerabilities that need urgent attention. That they specifically cite electronic voting machines without paper trails, one online ballot submissions, and centralized voter databases as prime targets for future cyber threats. Now, what does this all mean? It means vigilance is essential, basically. Safeguards must be improved, and perhaps most critically, we must all recognize the fundamental intent of these foreign actors, not simply to elect a candidate, but to destabilize the very foundation of American democracy. So that's what was taking place in this report. So the takeaway that you need to get here is the narrative that the 2016 election was hacked or stolen by Russia is not supported by the facts of these now declassified documents. No votes were changed. No election results were altered, yet Russia successfully leveraged cyber warfare to divide us, weaken our trust in democracy, and distract from genuine national security concerns. So how does that play in then to this other document that was also released? So let me get into that for you. This document right here. There's a lot of redactions, but I'm going to go through this one relatively quickly with you. So this is a whistleblower that came out. And there's other ones that are coming out as well that are basically exposing what really happened here with the ICA report that we covered previously. So we have here on a recently declassified whistleblower testimony from a senior intelligence officer who worked within the National Intelligence Council from 2015 to 2020. And this testimony basically paints an alarming picture of political manipulation, serious analytical malpractice, and even retaliation against officials who dared to speak the truth. This, to me, was more of a bombshell and kind of added an extra layer to what we were able to find out from the prior ICA documents that were released that never saw the light of day. So let's start from the beginning here. In 2016, President Barack Obama urgently requested a comprehensive analysis of election security. This whistleblower specifically was tasked directly by the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, to produce the Intelligence Community Assessment, the ICA report, detailing cyber threats to our elections. Now, here's where things begin to kind of go off the rails and get a little bit crazy. After Trump's surprise victory, another Intelligence Community Assessment was ordered, the now infamous 2017 ICA report that we covered. Now, according to the whistleblower, senior officials pressured analysts to alter their judgments, specifically, quote, pushing the narrative that Russia decisively preferred Donald Trump. This whistleblower explicitly stated here in these documents that he could not agree, quote, in good conscience, end quote, to that assessment based on the evidence available. Yet, despite raising serious objections, he was pressured by his superiors explicitly to sway other intelligence agencies like the Defense Intelligence Agency to accept conclusions he saw as deeply flawed. Now, if you remember, the documents that were released previously stated that there were officials that were arguing with the higher up saying, we don't feel confident in what you're telling us to do because it contradicts the analysis and the analytics that we looked through. I mean, you're trying to say this stuff is highly confident, but we're saying it's low or moderate at best. It contradicts what we're doing, and this is not right. And it even gets worse. I know you're like, how could this possibly get worse, Brad? This is wild. By the way, if you're enjoying this, hit that like button. We greatly appreciate you. So when investigating certain suspicious cyber activities reportedly linked to Russia, the whistleblower here was abruptly told to stop digging, with his supervisor cryptically dismissing this crucial line of inquiry, stating it was, quote, something else, end quote. The whistleblower himself described the abrupt halting of this analysis as odd, particularly as this evidence could potentially link to activities by individuals who were later subjects in special counsel John Durham's investigation. The guy was trying to uncover things that they didn't want him to see, and they told him to stop. Interesting. Very interesting. The whistleblower went on to detail deliberate efforts within the intelligence community to omit important context from the 2017 ICA report. He discovered evidence that suggested multiple countries, not just Russia, which is what I emphasized from that previous report that we just went over, had attempted to influence U.S. elections through various media channels, including allied NATO countries. Look at that. Yet these inconvenient facts were ignored or outright dismissed, allowing a singular focus on Russia that he says violated standard analytic tradecraft and integrity, once again, that we covered in those part 1, part 2 videos that I published for all of you, where we went page by page in the ICA report that never saw the light of day that was recently released by Tulsi Gabbard. This whistleblower account is crazy. And by the way, allegedly, there's other whistleblowers coming out as well. So perhaps most alarming was the revelation about the Steele dossier, which I call basically a tabloid magazine. You know those tabloid magazines that are by the grocery store that you kind of look through, and it was like, oh, Tom Cruise getting a face transplant. And you're like, what, really? It's basically all a bunch of made up hocus pocus stuff, right? It's all bogus. Now, what we have here is the Steele dossier, the now thoroughly discredited opposition research commissioned by the Clinton campaign. Now, according to internal communication, he discovered in 2019, this dossier was indeed a, quote, factor in the creation of the 2017 ICA, directly contradicting assurances given by senior intelligence officials, including then DNI, meaning Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, who publicly claimed the dossier was unreliable and irrelevant. So he publicly claimed that a tabloid magazine, which you would expect would be unreliable, irrelevant, it doesn't work, it's not trustworthy, but yet you still utilize it in the creation of the 2017 ICA report that Barack Obama wanted you to create. Weird. Gee. This discovery led the whistleblower to believe senior intelligence officials had deliberately misled him and other analysts for years, meaning the higher-ups were lying to their own people, meaning the American intelligence community. Wild. Now, what happened when he raised these concerns, you might add? He's going up to his higher-ups and saying, hey, what's going on here? I don't like this. I'm going to dig deeper, and they tell him to stop. And that he said, hey, there's other countries that are kind of wanting to meddle in our elections, kind of look into it and go through media outlets to discredit what's taking place and push narratives that aren't true. Did the intelligence community leadership welcome transparency or accountability? Well, quite the opposite, actually. The whistleblower was summarily dismissed from his key roles without explanation, removed from critical communications, and even subjected to adverse performance reviews in what he described as retaliatory actions for him trying to get to the truth. In a deliberate bid for accountability, the whistleblower repeatedly sought assistance from the Intelligence Community Inspector General between 2019 and 2022, believing his testimony could be highly relevant to ongoing criminal investigations, including John Durham's probe into FBI and intelligence abuses. Yet shockingly, check this out, the ICIG informed him they had not established mechanisms to convey his crucial whistleblower testimony to the Department of Justice. I mean, talk about this guy having to just be super frustrated, trying to get the information out there that what the top level of government is doing is completely false and manipulated, fabricated. And they're saying, hey, go away, shoo, we're going to push you in the back corner. Oh, by the way, we're going to screw with you too. You got no communications. We're going to cut you off. And then we're going to BS you and say, hey, well, there's no way to convey this information to anybody. So why don't you just shut up about it, is basically what they were telling him to do. So let me repeat this. Our intelligence communities own watchdog had no way to deliver potentially criminal evidence directly to federal investigators. Weird. The whistleblower was ultimately left with no option but to reach out personally to the Department of Justice and Special Counsel Durham. Now, despite making direct contact and providing detailed documentation he received No substantive follow-up whatsoever. Makes you wonder, what exactly was John Durham doing then? Because that was our question, was it not? How did John Durham not find out this information that Tulsi Gabbard released? How did John Durham just miss all of this and that we're showing and exposing all of this as being a major bombshell? Little wild, right? Gee, it looks like maybe he turned the other way, right? He didn't want to look at it. Interesting. This isn't just trouble. This is outrageous. It's not just troublesome. It's outrageous. Here we have clear evidence from inside the intelligence community of political pressure, manipulation of sensitive intelligence to fit a preferred narrative, suppression of legitimate concerns, and retaliation against truth tellers. Moreover, this testimony here strongly suggests a broader attempt by powerful individuals within the Obama administration's intelligence community to manipulate public perception and delegitimize an incoming administration. This goes beyond political disagreement, man. It's an alarming abuse of power that strikes the very heart of our democracy and the rule of law. This whistleblower laid out clearly that certain officials within the Obama-era intelligence apparatus deliberately distorted intelligence assessments, comprised national security analysis, and potentially obstructed legitimate investigations, all to advance a politically motivated narrative. So I don't want to mince words here. This isn't just an intelligence scandal, you guys. It's a national disgrace. It demands immediate, serious, and thorough investigation by Congress. People need to be arrested by this. Those responsible for abusing their authority, manipulating intelligence, as detailed in multiple reports now, and retaliating against honest public servants must be held accountable. The American people deserve the truth and nothing less. This is crazy. Now, what I will say is both of these reports didn't really give that much new information other than continuing to build upon the idea of, hey, we were right here. Our suspicions of what took place were correct. And I would say it actually went beyond what we thought. It went beyond kind of this whole manipulative nature of what we suspected was taking place, but again, gives credibility to what we were thinking of before. So those were the two documents. That was a big summary of what took place. Again, the first one was, yeah, the Russians did do stuff, which we already knew. They were trying to meddle in the election in some way, shape, or form. But again, the question was always about, was Trump colluding with Russia? Resoundingly no. And by the way, it seems to be the opposite. It seems like the DNC, the Hillary Clinton campaign, the Obama administration were the ones that are basically colluding with Russia this entire time, is what it seems like to me. So Hillary Clinton's back in the news, along with a bunch of other people from the Democrat Party. So hit that like button if you feel like that was thorough enough for you. I mean, again, I'm not going to go page by page on this one, the 120 stuff that's taking place. It's a little bit bonkers, a little bit wild. But you know, if you haven't already, we're going to be going towards the Rumble premiums going on in the future. So if you haven't already, make sure you join Rumble Premium here. And let me get that on the screen for you. Check out Rumble Premium, folks. This sponsorship is from Rumble, one that is incredibly important to the survival of the company itself. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built a platform for small creators such as myself. They didn't censor or have biases like we see from TikTok and YouTube and these other big tech companies, these social media outlets. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought that platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on COVID, but they did. I mean, Facebook actually literally admitted to it multiple times. They fell to the pressure of the Biden-Harris administration. Rumble did not. Rumble held the line, folks. They are attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to all you fine patriots, all you fine people. They're attacked in corporate media. They're attacked in governments like France. They're attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them, which is a major problem when trying to build a company like Rumble. Corporate America is fighting to remove speech. Rumble is fighting to keep it, baby. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers. They don't get much of it, which is why you need to check out Rumble Premium, which I'm a proud member of. Watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight and you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. If you go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO, all caps, or use the QR code right here You could join Rumble Premium. And like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, well, we're just happy that you're watching us over at Rumble, folks. Make sure you follow me over at Rumble. This is our home. This is our platform. And we always appreciate the love and kindness they support us. And as I mentioned, this is where Dark Mag is on Rumble Premium multiple times a month. And so in order to get those goodies and be able to kind of say whatever you want, you got to join Rumble Premium. It's always helpful that you support a good company, a great company like Rumble itself. Well, we have other news to cover here real quick, but let's try to go to the chat really quickly here. And let's see what y'all kind of are saying about this. We got good news the other day. Crazy Kamala isn't running for governor. That is true. Rumble can't even run longer than a few minutes. Try to lower your, Dave, try to lower. So I stream at a really high quality. Try to lower the quality of which you're trying to produce. Your internet might not be able to actually handle the level of which you're trying to populate. So for example, you might have over on YouTube kind of an automated quality that it would do. For example, if your internet's not great, I'm not saying it is or isn't, but maybe it's just not able to handle, 2K or 4K, and it will automatically give you a 1080p or 720 without you even knowing. Whereas maybe over at Rumble, you might be streaming, on 2K or 1080p, and you should be streaming at 720. So that could be the issue as well. Or just where you're at, your servers are being bombarded. There's a lot of morning shows, and maybe Rumble just doesn't have as many servers. Rumble's not as big as YouTube. They're trying to get there. So you got to give it some generosity, a little bit of time. Again, if you don't get a lot of brand advertisers, how could you build more email servers? Now, speaking of email servers, again, Hillary Clinton had one in her bathroom. So that's a thing. But let's not dig up old news, right? Let's not beat a dead horse. Well, in other news here, again, Kash Patel said evidence of Clinton Russia hoax was buried in a back room at FBI Kash Patel. What's funny is when I bring this stuff up, a lot of people go, oh, well, that's just, that's old news. We knew about that. Yeah, you only knew about it because he mentioned it in like a off podcast or an off interview, like on Fox News or something. You didn't really see the details of what he was talking about. So it's always crazy to me, people's mindset nowadays of like, oh, well, I already knew that. He already mentioned that before. Yeah. He said, yeah, there's a back room that we know about. There's documents there. You didn't know that it was the Russia collusion hoax. I hate that there's always like people that think they're like holier than thou. You know what I mean? They think they're the best. Like they're all knowing power. Oh yeah, we knew about it. Okay, well, give me all the details then. Yeah, exactly. So he made the comment after the release of the newly declassified annex from former special counsel John Durham that discussed how the Obama-era FBI appeared to ignore intelligence that indicated Clinton's campaign, its supporters, or Russian information, fueled allegations of ties between Trump's 2016 campaign and Moscow in order to distract from the controversy over her unauthorized use of an email server. Quote, we uncovered this annex along with thousands of other documents buried in the back room of the FBI. It revealed a highly classified piece of the Durham report, evidence that the Clinton campaign plotted to frame President Trump, and fabricated the Russia collusion hoax. We worked with the chairman Grassley and declassified the documents immediately, and now the American people could see the truth for themselves. The Russia hoax was a disgrace that President Trump and our country should have never been put through. That is correct. But you know what? Again, it's all meaningless unless people start going to jail for a long time. And I'm not talking about these bottom feeders. I'm talking about the big fish themselves. It needs to be both. It needs to be people like Hillary Clinton. It needs to be people like Barack Obama. It needs to be people like Jake Clapper, I think is what it is, or whoever. John Brennan, like these high up people are the ones that need to go. If they don't, then it's completely meaningless. So Attorney General Pam Bondi has already initiated a new strike force task with evaluating the evidence relating to the Obama administration's efforts to drive the Russia collusion allegations in response to various documents the Trump administration has been releasing to the public, such as findings that allegedly show in the Obama administration manufacturing manipulated intelligence. Now, I'm assuming this strike force, matter of fact, let me see if there's more information on the strike force itself. There is, about a week ago. It says here, the Justice Department announced the formation of a new strike force on Wednesday that would be tasked with evaluating and assessing the evidence compiled by Tulsi Gabbard relating to former President Barack Obama's administration. Bondi added her own comment saying the Department of Justice is proud to work with the DNI, blah, blah, blah. We investigate these troubling disclosures fully and leave no stone unturned. Now, this is her, I would say this is Pam Bondi's way of getting out of the terrible communications she's had regarding the Epstein files. This is kind of her way of showing justice in some way, shape, or form. I mean, they really dug themselves a hole with the Epstein files because that ain't going away. But at least this is an opportunity for her to kind of reclaim some sort of trust within the American people. But I'll tell you what, if you don't go after any of the big fish, people are not going to be happy and you have no trust. And at that point, if you don't have trust in your attorney general, you got to fire her. And I have a feeling that might be coming up. So we'll see what happens with that. But James Clapper. Did I say Jake Sullivan? I don't think Jake Sullivan. No, I don't think John Kirby or Jake Sullivan, any of those people should be tried. If I said Jake Sullivan, I didn't mean that, but I meant James Clapper, CIA director. All right, here we go. So we got other news here with Benny Johnson. Now, the part that I want to talk about with this is specifically what we kind of talked about yesterday with, it feels really dark in here, by the way. Give me one moment here. Let me see if I can turn this up really quick. There we go. It's weird that it's so dark. Is there's still deep state actors that are within the intelligence community, these three-letter agencies that are trying to go against the Trump administration. By the way, going against the will of the American people. And I don't know how this is being allowed in the sense of, well, they're going, for example, she confirms that Operation Mockingbird is still ongoing inside the CIA and she's actively trying to shut it down. Tulsi says deep state intel agents are actively colluding with left-wing media outlets to attack President Donald Trump from within. But if you find these people, why are we not, if you know this is taking place and you know they're finding these people out, why are we not getting any idea of, well, what's happening to them? It's important that in the public town square, you tell us what's happening to these people, because if you don't, then people are going to keep doing it because they don't know that anything bad's happening to these people. It's just, oh, you're fired from your job. They don't care. The damage has already been done. They already gave you the double middle finger. It's kind of like those reporters that post something bogus about Donald Trump. I mean, they all were pushing the Russia gate, the Russia collusion stuff. None of them have been fired, from my understanding. Not a single reporter has been fired for pushing that false narrative. They actually got rewarded for it, which is a typical thing in the Democrat Party. You get rewarded for doing the worst possible job you can. We don't need to break that down anymore. We already hit that enough. But this is still happening. Nothing's being done.
Being used as a propaganda mechanism. We saw it flatly. I mean, I think it's the smoking gun, quite frankly, of the Obamagate narrative and the Russiagate narrative, that it was so baked in that the New York Times and Washington Post went and ran with it. Some would say that that's part of Operation Mockingbird. Some would say that that's part of what we learned in the Church Committee, that the intel agencies were using media outlets as their mouthpieces, and that those mouthpieces would parrot the official narrative. And I wanted to ask you, is this operation still going on? Are you aware of the intel agencies working directly with media outlets in order to push prescribed narratives that may or may not be true?
It's something that we've already had to deal with, Benny, within this administration, where there are people within the intelligence community who believe that their will is more important than the will of the American people, and will weaponize intelligence by leaking it to their friends within the mainstream media with the intent of undermining President Trump's agenda. It is not one that he hasn't already talked about in every rally and town hall that he did throughout the campaign. I don't even know how many there were, but President Trump is enacting the very thing he promised the American people he would do in this election. So people in the intelligence community, they may agree, they may disagree. That's not the point here. As intelligence professionals, as people who work in the national security space, in the intelligence community, they are required to fulfill their mandate to their oath to the Constitution of the United States and to the President of the United States, who was duly elected by the American people. Those who leak intelligence to their friends in the mainstream media with the intent of undermining the president who was elected by the American people, none of these intelligence professionals were. They are subverting the will of the people and therefore undermining the Constitution.
It's wild that you're still having to deal with that. Call it what you will. But Operation Mockingbird, just incredible that they were just out with it, that they were using the media as government organs to push propaganda, and it's still happening today.
This is why what we're doing is so important, Benny,
Yes.
and this is why President Trump's mandate in this is really critical, is by exposing the truth, by exposing the bad actors within the intelligence community and in the political space who are weaponizing intelligence to advance their own political interests, is so important to be able to turn the light on in places that have been dark for far too long, expose the truth, and drive accountability. That's the only way that we can actually shift this and begin the work to try to restore trust in the intelligence community.
It takes years to build trust, seconds to break it. I would like to point out there's this idea that when things get bigger, you're able to hide in the shadows more. So, for example, the bigger government gets, the bigger these three-letter agencies get, the easier it is going to be able to have these nefarious actors within your own government because it's so big and they can go hide in the shadows. It's kind of like that idea, and I don't mean to bring up the education system, but when you have a class of 50 students, we'll say even 36, 40, doesn't matter, that's hard to contain that many people and kind of in a 45-minute class or even hour class, give your attention to every single student on top of doing all the other duties you have as an educator, meaning that there's going to be students that fall through the cracks. There's going to be students that you're never able to reach. There's going to be students that hide in the shadows, basically, that kind of, again, fall through the cracks, and they're kind of wandering this field by themselves, basically, whether it's good or it's bad. In the same way here, you have so many people that it's very easy for these nefarious actors to go through the shadows, run into the shadows, and never be caught for years, decades, or their entire career because government is so big. The smaller the government, the harder it is to have these types of nefarious actors go undetected. So that's why, again, I think there's another conversation to be had that you need to limit the size and scope of the federal government because it's just too bloated. Now, there's also other reasons for that too, but that's not part of today's commentary. Now, the other news here we have is Trump drops new tariff plan on the eve of Trump's trade deadline, which is, I believe, today, by the way. The White House updated its tariff plan on Thursday evening hours before President Donald Trump's deadline for new trade agreements was set to kick in. He's the type of guy that's going to make a last minute switcheroo pretty constantly. He's known to do this even on last minute deals with other countries, kind of like down to the wire, saying, hey, we need you also to do this. And they usually end up bending the knee. The new plan pushes the implementation of tariffs back a week from August 1st to August 7th to give Customs and Border Patrol officials time to adjust the new levies on dozens of countries. The new plan also reveals a host of tariff rates that are set to kick in. The 10% universal tariff will remain the floor for tariff rates for trade with the United States. Only countries that have a trade deficit with the United States, meaning they import more from the United States than they export, will receive 10% tariff rates. For countries that have a trade surplus with the United States, their goods will be tariffed at least 15%, according to the White House plan. Other countries have struck new trade agreements with the United States will have various tariff rates based on terms and agreement. More than a dozen countries will face higher tariff rates than 15%, ranging from 19 to 41. President Trump is using tariffs as a necessary, powerful tool to put America first after many years of unsustainable trade deficits that threaten our economy and national security. A senior administration official briefing reporters on the details of the plan on Thursday evening said that the president has essentially reordered global trade. The official added that Trump is accomplishing, quote, the type of outcomes that the World Trade Organization and the multilateral trading system have failed to accomplish at a scale over the last 25 years. Alongside its new tariff plan, the international trade, the White House announced steeper tariffs on Canada. The Trump administration said in a statement that the United States would be increasing the tariff on Canada from 25 to 35%, with the higher tariff set to go into effect as of today. So Canada has failed to cooperate in curbing the ongoing flood of fentanyl and other illicit drugs and has retaliated against the United States for the president's actions to address this unusual, extraordinary threat to the United States. So Canada is still just completely shoving their own head further and further up their own ass. But hey, you got to let them do it. I mean, they must like the smell of shit. So speaking of Canada here, backing Palestinian state could damage U.S. trade deal. So it looks like Canada is going to the way of the French, which is never a good idea. That's the last thing you want to do, is follow the French really in anything, because well, when you pick your head up and you pull it out of your ass like Canada needs to do, you're going to realize the French are nowhere to be found, and they will never back you up in the time of need unless you go back to the revolution. And well, that's really the last time they ever backed anybody up. President Donald Trump said overnight that it would be difficult to make a trade deal with Canada if it moved forward with plans to recognize a Palestinian state. Now, I do agree that, look, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, that's what you're getting with the French, as well as it seems like Canada now. And with that two-state kind of Palestinian and Israeli state, it ain't going to work. We've tried it multiple times. I mean, sure, you want to give it a go again and watch that it doesn't work? Sure, go right ahead. Trump made the comments after Canada declared it would join France and the United Kingdom in pushing for the affirmation of a Palestinian statehood. And it kind of makes sense why France and the United Kingdom are going this route, because remember, they've had mass migration into their countries and they're completely collapsed. I mean, France and United Kingdom are not really who they are anymore. They're a shell of themselves. It's kind of sad to watch them crumble and cripple in the same way that we probably would have if we continued to allow the progressive left to just run roughshod over our country. But thank God Donald Trump's back in office, and it seems like things are switching the other direction, especially in our culture. Remember, culture is downstream of politics is downstream of culture. Well, when you take back the culture, that means you've taken back politics. The announcement came 2 days before Canada could be slapped with a 35% tariff if it does not reach a trade agreement with the United States before Friday's deadline. Well, it seems like that's the case. Wow, Canada has just announced that it is backing statehood for Palestine. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Oh, Canada, Trump posted on Truth Social. I think Trump just likes pissing the Canadians off. I think he likes just trolling people. So that's what's going on with Canada. I mean, if you really want to strike Canada hard, all you need to do is just screw with their power, because I believe we kind of refine a lot of their crude oil, or just their oil in general. And well, if you want to really mess with them, that would be where to do it. You got to strike people where it hurts. You know, for like guys, for example, you kick them right in the nuts. Well, Canada's nuts would be the energy. And that would really screw with them. And they'll go, oh, well, we'll cut your energy for like that one state and area. Okay, well, maybe that tells that one state or area not to rely on another country for their power, which is kind of the conversation about all these tariffs, is it not? To stop relying on other countries for all this manufacturing, because it's a national security threat that if one of these countries goes usurpacious on another country, well, you got kind of a problem on your hands, don't you? Gee, who's going to make all your stuff in a time of war? Big problem with the Chinese right now that we have, actually. A lot of people expect the Chinese to go into Taiwan. I know we've been saying this for 4 years now, but they were supposed to go into Taiwan this year. We'll see if it even happens still. But a lot of people are expecting 2026, 2027, maybe. We'll see. Again, we've been kicking this can down the road, mentioning this. By the way, to give ourselves a little bit of credit here, we have always said that it was going to be 2025. So we'll see if they actually do it. But it's a big problem when a lot of your stuff's being manufactured by a country that doesn't exactly like you. And but the Democrats can't seem to figure that one out. Now, there's other countries that still have their heads on straight, believe it or not. I know you're like, well, who's that, Brad? What countries have their head on straight? I haven't heard of any. I mean, you're talking about United Kingdom, France, Germany, all these countries that kind of just been part of that whole Davos thing with the elites, with the global Great Reset. Well, Estonia sides with Trump, won't support Palestinian state recognition. There you go. Speaking at his government's weekly press conference, the Prime Minister of Estonia said his country has no plans to recognize a Palestinian state at the United Nations General Assembly. On Wednesday, 15 countries signed a joint declaration calling for the recognition of a Palestinian state when the UNGA convenes its annual regular sessions. President Trump has stated that he would not support such a move. Today, there is no state to recognize. Of course, we are doing everything we can within the European Union to resolve the critical humanitarian situation as quickly as possible. But from our point of view, there is currently no state to additionally recognize. Israel was one of the first companies to recognize Estonia's independence in 1991. Estonia joined the European Union in 2004 and was one of the 38 countries that boycotted the anti-Israel World Conference. So you can kind of see, I don't know if it's a little bit of loyalty, But, that'd be a pretty big slap in the face by Estonia if they're like, hey, we're going to recognize a Palestinian state when Israel kind of had your back, 30 plus years ago. So that's a thing. We'll see and keep you updated on what's going on with that in the United Nations. The United Nations is a complete joke, by the way. Always has been, always will be. And they're a bunch of shit talkers straight to our face, by the way, which is crazy. So how did I get this information? Well, let me tell you. There's a great book, and I've plugged it many times here in the show. It's a book by Nikki Haley. I know you don't like her, but she has a really great book of her time as the UN ambassador under Donald Trump's first term. And she gives you a really great glimpse into how the United Nations runs and how it handles information, how it handles world affairs. And let me tell you, these countries talk a lot of shit in front of our face. A bunch of them are two-faced. That's what I got out of a lot of it. They're two-faced. Man, it really makes me want to use a lot more words than that. What they'll do is they'll vote against the United States and our interests a lot of times. Then what they'll do is behind closed doors when they're talking to our ambassadors or the president, then they're kissing our feet. They're kissing our ass behind the doors. They're all moochy, swoochy, watchy, eachy with us because they want our what? Yeah. They want our money. They want our moolah. Money talks. Bunch of two-faced assholes. I hate that, man. I hate that. See, I'm the type of person, if I'm going to say something, it's going to be something that I'll be able to say in front of your face. I don't really talk too much shit behind people's backs. I'll criticize people, and some people take criticism as talking shit. When I say talking shit, I don't think talking shit is exactly like, usually if you're saying a bunch of stuff that's talking shit, doo-doo is crap. Meaning it's smelly, it's stinky, it's bad. You criticizing somebody is not a bad thing. Criticism is in the form of hopefully making them a better person is how I look at it. But other people take it differently. Like people criticize me, for whatever thing it may be. Hey, as long as it's productive, it can make me into a better person, I'll take it. We're all striving to be perfected. We'll never get there, but the strive is there. Speaking of things trying to be perfected, Jerome Powell. Trump unloads on Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Too angry, too stupid, and too political. Now, I understand Trump wants the interest rates to be lowered. Trump keeps saying for every point of interest rate, you're saving the American taxpayer $350 billion. Like, I get it. I really do get it. But at the same time, I want to see what the long-term ramifications are of these tariffs. Now, I think there also is a conversation where Jerome can lower the interest rates and if need be, increase them when you need to. The problem is, remember, this was a mistake that happened with the Federal Reserve under Donald Trump's first term. If you recall, Donald Trump was happy that they lowered interest rates to like almost zero under his first term, which was a problem, by the way. They should not have done that. Just a heads up. It was a really big mistake that the Federal Reserve made under Donald Trump's first term, where they should have increased the rates way earlier than what they did. They should not have listened to Donald Trump on that. So I'm okay with there being a little bit of resilience here and reserve by the Federal Reserve, no pun intended. But you could have maybe lowered it a little bit just to kind of see where things are going. That way you're giving a little bit of grace for Donald Trump and you're not exactly looking bad yourself. Drop it a quarter of a point, It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just to say, hey, we're moving the needle. We see what you see, and we're willing to lower it incrementally. We're still not sure exactly how these tariff deals are going to work out. Tariffs can cause inflation, right? Because you're increasing the price of said good that you're selling upon the American people. So we have to see how that's going to work out. So just because inflation is still within the ballpark of what you need, you have to remember that when all these tariffs started going in place, a lot of these businesses started to basically ship a bunch of product to said place because they wanted to obfuscate the tariffs themselves. And so they have basically a ton of overhead that they need to sell. And this overhead was not being hit with these tariffs. So the Fed is not exactly wrong here in the sense of maybe we need to wait a little bit longer because we know the strategy that all these businesses were doing regarding these tariffs. And by the way, the tariffs are still not done. So we still don't know the effects of what it's going to have on inflation here, of increasing the price of goods on the American people. So they're not totally unjustified by keeping the rates where they're at to say, hey, we want to err on the side of caution and see what happens here. Because by the way, you'd be screwed if they lower the interest rates, right, which is going to make the economy boom because everybody's able to finance things a lot cheaper. Well, gee, if you get things for really cheap that you financed, or cheaper, meaning a cheaper interest rate on a vehicle, it's not exactly cheaper, right? Because if you're having to finance it, you're going to have to pay more for that vehicle. But if you're financing a vehicle, right, you're now in the debt, meaning you owe somebody money. Well, gee, that's going to be a little bit tough then if tariffs actually cost the price of your groceries or whatever manufactured goods are being imported here into the country to go up. Well, it's going to make life a lot more tougher for you because now you owe that bill. It's on credit. You're making that payment, but now the cost of your living has gone up because the tariffs have increased your cost of living. So you got to be careful with this stuff. I know people love the idea of like, well, this sounds great. Let's just do this. Yeah, but why don't you think about the long term? Let's not talk about the next 3 months or even 6 months. Let's talk about the next year when a lot of these tariffs go into place. And then let's see what it does to your personal finances. Okay, this could really, really have a problem for a lot of us here. We have to see how it works out. Jeff says, while the exact impact of tariffs on inflation is unclear, the Fed wants to avoid cutting the rates prematurely and risking inflation resurgence. Thank you. There we go. See, it's nice to have patriots have their head on straight. And by the way, there's people that probably disagree with me on this. I love Trump. I got nothing against Jerome Powell. It's just that's where my mind goes. I have to put my feelings behind my logic, and my logic tells me we need to just hold for a moment. I think you can decrease it by, 0.25%, half a point, and I think that would at least kind of, get the economy going a little bit and then see what happens. Nothing crazy. Okay. So that's what we have there with Jerome Powell. Is there a clip of Trump ripping him a new one? No, damn. It's always good to get a Trump clip. Where are we at here? LA mayor declares victory as troops move out, but Pete Hegseth has last word. I love the tit for tat. By the way, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, hit that like button. It does support the show, you guys. I wouldn't ask you to do it if it didn't. I only ask you to do things that help us out. It's always appreciated. If you want to throw a donation, you're more than welcome to. Don't feel like you have to, but it does help support the show. We would always appreciate anybody that can make a donation. That's one of the hard things about doing a morning show is I'm not a morning person. I've explained that in the past. I'm one of those people that don't want to talk to anybody in the morning. I want my peace and quiet. I want to be left alone. It's a little tough when you host a morning show and you're not a morning person whatsoever. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to slur your words. You're going to sound like you're drunk. You're going to sound like Joe Biden, basically, because your brain's not functioning. The wires are crisscrossed. Your synapses aren't firing correctly. Well, here we go. Democratic mayor. She just sucks, man. Anyways, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass immediately declared victory when reports began to circulate that more than 1,000 U.S. troops were being pulled back from her city. She declared victory like she's in some war. What an idiot. Bass shared a New York Times article reporting the imminent drawdown of 1,350 American service members. Oh, here's a random point. You see this word drawdown or downside? Either one of those words, utilizing it. This is, you remember how I told you last year was the first year as an educator that I've had to change the wording in my math problems because statistics problems are all word problems. That's all they are, is word problems. Mind you, most statistics is actually interpretation. It's actually just writing. There's calculations there, but it's mostly writing. Last year was the first year that I've had to change the wording for I teach mostly seniors. I've had to change the wording for my problems because their literacy is so low. So it was multiple times. And by the way, education is going to come up here in a moment. I have a huge education thing that I just found out about last night at like midnight. Like, Brad, but you wake up at like 5:30 for the show. Yeah, I went to bed at like 1 a.m. last night. I told you I'm having problems sleeping. So see this word drawdown or downside? Students don't know what that means. A lot of students don't know what that means. So I've had to draw down or downside. That's why I highlighted it because it actually triggered that in my mind. I had to change that last year for the first time ever. Was one of the many words I've had to change that they don't know what it means. The literacy is getting crazy. And that's a massive problem, by the way, because you kind of getting to the point where it's going to sound bad. You've dumbed down your literacy on your exams so much that you're in a middle school kind of realm in terms of how you write things. And these people are going to like great universities. It's pretty crazy. Anyways, they're basically removing like 1,300 plus American service members deployed to protect the city because Karen Bass can't do it. But here she is trying to, throw a little bit of fuel on the fire. Oh, we won. Won for who? Like, that's my question. Who'd you win for? Like, your job is to represent your constituents. Illegal immigrants are not your constituents, by the way. You're not there to represent people from other nations. You're there to represent American citizens. But Democrats get that confused quite a bit. So Hegsat says, "You're welcome, Mayor. These brave troops are redeploying because their mission was so successful. You should be thanking them for saving your city from mob and chaos. We will continue to support law enforcement even when you won't." Hell yeah, dude. You go, Pete. You go, baby. Alrighty. Now let me actually pull this up. I want to see if I can find a news article. Let me see. Go back. Hold on. I didn't have it up. It's just that's what she said. I got to go back into my show notes really quick from yesterday when I was preparing this. Yeah, here it is, dude. All right. Let me get this for you. I want to see if there's a video on this real time. So this is going to be talking about education. Georgia is putting something in that's freaking remarkable. It's called the Parent Accountability Act. You guys, check this out. I got to know your opinion on this because me as an educator, I absolutely love this idea. It's called the Parent Accountability Act. It's a couple months old and it's pretty freaking awesome. So here we go. Check this out. It's alarming, you guys. I can't believe this doesn't get more coverage. What's going on inside the classroom. I am sounding the alarm for all of you. And I work in a great school. I love this. So let's break this down a little bit here for all of you. So the Parent Accountability Act in Georgia refers to a proposed piece of legislation advocated by the Georgia Federation of Teachers to address the rising incidence of student violence against educators in public schools. I don't think this actually goes further enough. I think if your son or daughter is creating problems in the classroom, meaning if you are verbally abusing a staff member, meaning a teacher or administration, and or students, the parent should be held liable as well. I am going that far with it because it is that of a problem where if parents don't want to actually parent their kid, well, then you need to be forced to do so because it's getting out of control. This only proposes violence against teachers. It does not propose the speech that's utilized against educators. I want to point out, in what sort of corporate world do you allow the behavior that students are giving towards an adult? Where is it ever allowed? Because the lawsuits would be crazy. Why is it because, oh, well, they're just kids. Oh, well, they're teenagers. I don't care at all. It is not allowed. And because the consequences aren't being applied to anybody, well, now it's about time you start applying it to somebody. Hey, Pat, thank you so much for the $10, man. Greatly appreciate that. It's been a long time supporter of the Ball Brad Show. Not only a member, but also volunteers his time as a moderator. Appreciate you, Pat. God bless you. Thank you. $10. I actually saw a clip of you and Dizzy doing a live on TikTok. Look like you guys are having a lot of fun. Appreciate that, man. God bless you, dude. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So check this out. The purpose of this is the proposed legislation aims to hold parents legally accountable for their children's violent actions against teachers or school staff, addressing the growing concern of school violence. Dude, look at these numbers. The proposal comes in response to a significant increase in violence against teachers, with Georgia public schools reporting 755 incidents of student violence against educators. You guys, this is violence. This is, I believe, like something physical with teachers. That's insane. That was in one school year. Dude, you would expect these numbers for the entire nation. Nearly doubled from 390 incidences pre-COVID. This aligns with a national trend of rising violence against educators post-COVID. Look at that. You get fines, mandated community service, potentially at schools. I think jail time. Just go right to jail. Yep. F around, find out. I'm tired of it, man. I'm tired of disrespect teachers get. You're having a mass exodus of teachers. They're leaving the field. They're leaving it because they can't teach anymore. And I have been sounding the alarm on this. February will be 5 years. I've been saying the exact same thing, how much of a problem the behavior is in the classrooms. It is to a point where you guys' jaw will drop. And as an educator here, I'm trying to sound the alarm for you. And the hope is that maybe people in my community can take the initiative and propose something like this to your local congressman or congresswoman, because it's gotten out of control. It really has. And it's not right. By the way, teachers have been shot. Teachers are constantly, I mean, go on YouTube right now. There'll be a new video every week of a teacher being assaulted. That should be so rare. All of you right now in the chat should be like flipping your shit that a teacher was ever touched in the first place. Because if that was you, put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself as you, a teacher, and you were assaulted by a kid for any reason. Even if you disrespected them, you still don't put your hand on somebody. I hope people get held accountable for this, because we need to bring accountability back, because we're always held accountable here. Hell, I'm always held accountable. Something always happens to me. Nothing ever happens to anybody else, but it always happens to me for some ungodly reason. Tired of it, man. It really irks me. Something needs to change, and I hope this goes through. I was ecstatic when I heard this. I'm hoping this goes through in Georgia. I've heard horrendous stories from my teacher clients and seen bruises. I've had friends get stabbed in Long Beach. I have a buddy that got stabbed in the stomach. That's an educator. Brad, stop yelling at us. When I first started teaching in 1985 in California, I had 35 in kindergarten. I would tell my friends I was a crowd controller, basically, which is insane to have 35 kindergartens in 1985. That's so crazy. Class sizes are way too big. Alrighty, let's see. So it's already 7:05. Let's see if we have any breaking news right now for all of you. Sorry we didn't go to the chat that much on this Friday. I feel like I say that all the time. But here's at least what Fox is proposing. Deputies on leave after sharing traffic stop information with immigration agents. Surveillance video shows Arkansas cops arresting double murder suspect at salon. Vacation hotspot flooded with soldiers as officials scramble to protect tourists. Colbert confronts Kamala Harris on who's currently leading Democrat Party. That's kind of interesting. Let's see if she even knows. Let's see if we can get this video going. Breaking news, Gavin. Dave, I don't know what's... Dave, you got some issues. That is hilarious. So there's this group of people that I sometimes hang out with on TikTok lives, and they always every day propose this question, and they've been doing it for a long time, like a few weeks now. And they ask Democrats to come into the live and say, who is the leader of the Democrat Party and what are they doing right now? What are they pushing policy-wise that's going to benefit all Americans? And it's hilarious to watch for hours. They just come in. They can't name a single person and what they're actually doing, which is insane. I've never, and I'll work on stuff and I'll just listen to it. I have yet to see a single person answer it. And I've probably listened to like hundreds at this point of coming in there. They can't do it because there is no front runner of the Democrat Party. They aren't doing anything for the American people. Matter of fact, if anything, they're lying about certain things. Let me see if I could find that Chuck Schumer clip before we go. Chuck Schumer is saying that the new ballroom that Donald Trump wants to build is going to be put on you guys as a taxpayer. So check this out. So Schumer implies the $200 million White House ballroom is government waste. Here we go.
There's even something more confounding. Some breaking news. Just now, the White House announced construction of a $200 million White House ballroom that will begin in September. A $200 million ballroom. Where'd this money come from? Did Congress appropriate it? I don't think so. It's almost like Doge was never about waste at all.
President Trump and other donors have generously committed to donating the funds necessary to build this approximately $200 million structure.
He is even...
Uh-oh, Chuck. gee, it looks like we're not paying for it at all. But that's what they do. They lie. They've been lying for a while, right? I mean, the entire Russia hoax was a complete lie, but Democrats don't want to talk about that, right? They just want to talk about the Epstein list, which they should talk about. But it'd be nice for them to speak up and, just kind of acknowledge any of it. So. My daughter took a 2/3 pay cut, moved to another state, and is teaching in a Christian school. Her students answer yes, ma'am, and she has 15 kids in her class. Yeah, not good for her. Yeah, I got a buddy that works at a Jewish school, has like 8 kids in his class, makes a ton of money, and it's a good environment. Again, I will say when I taught in the classroom during COVID. Public schools are closed down. I taught in the classroom during COVID, and we had classroom sizes of 12 to 15 max because you have to have the social distancing. There was almost zero behavioral issues with a class size that big, 12 to 15. Like I said, there is a very strong case to be made that, when things get bloated, when things get big, people hide in the shadows. They think that they're hidden. They think they can act up because there's 35 people in the room. They see all these people. They think that the teacher doesn't see it. But you guys heard that even when you're students, we see everything up there. You see under the desk. You see somebody text you. I mean, you legitimately have a front row seat and you see everybody. You think that, because from your vantage point, because you're lower, that you're kind of hidden. But the teacher's standing up, meaning they're looking down. They can see everything. They think they go hidden. They think that they're not, it's just, yeah. So anyways, we don't need to hound that. But anywho. With that being said, this is it. This is the end of the show. Hopefully you had a good time. If you did, hit that like button. If you're new here, please toss us a follow. Let us know in the chat, by the way. Let us know, hey, it's my first time watching. You don't even have to tell us if you had a good time or not. If you want, you can tell us the thing sucked, but thanks for having me. Any sort of feedback's always great. Feedback makes things better, by the way. Especially as an educator, you got to take criticism, right? But let us know. Let us know if it's your first time in the chat. We would love to give you a shout out here live on the show, especially if you're a new member. Greatly appreciate that. Again, we do have a book, Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. I don't know how long or how much longer that book's going to be available. I have to pay for the production of the books every year to kind of keep it maintained in some way, shape, or form. So I think probably in 2026, probably in March, I'm probably going to cut that off where the book's not going to be available anymore. That will have given it about 3 years of runtime. I think that's pretty good. For those that wanted to buy a copy, you could have got one. And maybe I'll go like a self-publishing route after that or something like that with it, since I hold the copyright for it. But I appreciate all your love and support, kindness. I hope you guys have a blessed day, a blessed weekend. Be safe out there, especially those that are like on the East Coast or like, Tennessee area, middle America. I hear it's hotter than Africa out there. I saw Tennessee was hitting like 110 index. That's hot, man. That is freaking cooking. So, try to stay hydrated, get those electrolytes in you. Appreciate you, Keith. Thanks, man. Good show, man. No, appreciate you. I saw your comment too, Keith. Thank you. And I'll see you later, folks. Have a blessed day. Take care.